Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on the benefits of mobile forums. My name is Edward Wendling, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. All attendees for today's webinar are muted so we can have a smooth presentation, but we will be taking questions at the end. Asking questions is very easy. On the right hand of your screen, you should see the GoToWebinar navigation pane, and near the bottom of this pane is a question section where you can post your questions at any time during the webinar. At the end of the presentation, we'll go through as many questions as we can. If you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, please also use the question section and we'll try to address them as soon as we can. We're also delighted to let you know that we are an approved ASAE Certified Association Executive Provider. This webinar is worth 1 credit that can be applied towards your CAE application or renewal. To learn more about ASAE's CAE program, just visit asaecenter.org/CAE. Finally, at the end of today's webinar, after we finish the Q&A, you'll be presented with a feedback screen. Please take a moment to answer the questions and let us know how we did. In order to receive CAE credit, you must complete the feedback form. That's how we know that you've seen the webinar and can give you the information that you need. So with all of that being said, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Brad Latour, COO of Clowdr. Brad, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks so much, Edward. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for taking some time out today to learn a little bit more about your mobile journey. I think today's presentation, we're going to focus on kind of a pretty exciting element of how to think about mobile. For those of you that may have joined us in prior webinars, we have talked more broadly about the massive shift to native mobile, some of those topics being unlocking the value of your AMS, and really just broadly how to think about mobile and possibly how to select the right mobile partner. I think today's going to be fun because we're going to examine a very specific element inside of a year-round native mobile solution, and that is mobile communication. So oftentimes we think about mobile from a framework of consumption, so reading the content that's delivered in a news feed, maybe commenting on it or liking it or perhaps sharing it with another member. Today really it focuses narrowly on how members can communicate with one another or potentially with the organization, whether that's individually or in groups. And it really focuses on, some of the key brands that you see on your screen today. These are all mobile communication platforms. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they all have a messaging component that allows members to communicate in an ongoing manner. When we look at what's driving this, a few statistics that I think, even for me, someone who's in the mobile business all day, every day, it never ceases to amaze me how quickly the shift is happening. This one here from eMarketer talks specifically about exclusive only mobile use. So these folks here who represent over the majority, almost 52% for this year, it means they are not accessing their social networks at all from a desktop. So they're not accessing it from a laptop, desktop, and I think that's really telling. It kind of puts a point on how quickly things are moving. So as we talk about throughout the day, I am going to try to remain as agnostic as I can. I will have a handful of Clowdr specific examples just to give you some context, but web forms, listservs, anything web-based up until this point of the last couple of years has been very, very successful in allowing members to communicate. Now, what we're seeing from our vantage point is that shift is happening right along with the overall shift of the market. So if you think about the additional causes of the smart trend, certainly the devices are making a big impact in that. They're getting better, faster, smarter, and I know myself just in looking at my own habits. if I'm going to be out of the office just for a couple of days, I'm in many cases not even bringing my laptop. And just a couple of years ago, I wouldn't even thought about not bringing my laptop. But the way the phones are, you can pretty much do just about anything you want directly from your mobile device. This is one of my favorite examples. Obviously, Facebook, arguably one of the most well-known brands on the planet. 1 in 3 human beings are on their platform. So it shouldn't be a question of, is this going to catch on, or do my members, are they going to do it? They're already doing it. So if your members are breathing, they're on mobile. Obviously, everybody is on mobile. And when Facebook does their quarterly announcements, they always talk about the access. And here, one of the more recent earnings announcements, 96% of their members are accessing their platform from a smartphone or a tablet. So it's undeniable. It's pretty overwhelming anytime you can see statistics that really just put such a significant point on the topic of being in the 90s. I think it's pretty amazing. Again, as we talked today specifically about mobile communication, I think the predecessor to why this was so popular was really texting. So texting started to supplant email, and now what you're seeing is mobile platforms starting to supplant texting, and certainly email is with that as well. A couple of key stats I think are worth noting. That top one is almost a little bit scary. Begs the question, what are you doing for the other 2 hours a day if 8 and 10 adults have their phone within arm's reach? When I saw that stat, I did happen to do a straw poll in my office. Every single one of my mobile first staff members, yes, their phone is next to them sleeping on the nightstand. In the occasional case, their spouse makes them turn it to silent mode, but in all cases, every single staff member had their phone next to them on the nightstand while they were sleeping. 97% of Americans text at least once a day, and no surprise there. And then this is the one that, if you're thinking about how do you gain access to more members directly, 82% of text messages read within 5 minutes. That's no different than a message on the phone, push notifications that we all get that give us a quick alert on our lock screen to see what's going on, whether it's Nationals won last night in the bottom of the 8th in a thriller, or what's happening in the stock market, or what's happening, with anything that's important to you. You get an easy push notification to alert you, so that you almost feel up to date, with a 2-line screen update on your lock screen. And then, that contrasting with email, and that continues to go down, right? So email continues to drop in its effectiveness and is now being replaced with messaging and push notifications. Another study from Samsung a couple of years back, just under 2 years ago, talks about the mobility trends. And I think this is an interesting one. I do hear this pretty regularly from association folks saying, well, we're mostly used in the workplace. That's fine. Mobile is still being used at the workplace. And in this case, 33% of the users at work are using their phones. So it's not like people are checking their phones, putting them in their bags when they get to the office, and then pulling them out of their bag when they're leaving the office. It is just part of everyone's regular day, their work schedule. And oftentimes, I'll see it, in my office daily, where a staffer will grab their phone prior to even their laptop, when their laptop is even right in front of them. So it is ubiquitous. It's really kind of melding together, and there's not a clear cut, and devices are being, really reached for. And it certainly does have to do with demographics as well. So those kind of in the millennial mobile first generation are more apt to grab their phone first. we talk specifically about forums, forums have long in the last 10 to 15 years been proven in the web environment to be an effective tool to allow members to communicate. So, you think back a dozen years ago when pretty much everybody was tethered to their desktop or a laptop, it made a lot of sense to also have a web-based forum. As those times are now changing, as evidenced by the statistics I just shared, what we're starting to see is an appetite to bring forums further along in that journey to make them a native mobile as well. There's certainly a significant benefit from an association perspective in allowing this framework to exist, whether it's web-based or more currently native mobile, because you're basically providing an environment for your members to communicate, right? So it's topical. They can usually join various groups that are most important to them, but it's got to be in a medium that they want, right? So web forums are starting really now to become viewed as almost clunky because you got to log in so many different times, and that's really just indicative of the big brands of the world. So they've made it so easy to do just about anything with a couple of taps of your smartphone. Anything outside of that is viewed as kind of old and slow. I mentioned that the need sometimes to continually have to log in. When you're on native mobile, obviously it already knows who you are. So you're allowed to stay logged in, and you're not interrupted with a request to log in each time. One of the benefits certainly of native mobile and developing on the native mobile iOS or Google Play platforms. When you do have to get logged out from time to time, that can certainly feel a bit disjointed. And then sometimes there is further kind of barriers between what you're doing on the actual site versus how you might view and respond to a response. So if you have your email trigger set up, for example, you might see that and then immediately want to respond. And then oftentimes you're forced to log back in again, which can, again, it sounds kind of minor on some level, but that's precisely the type of friction that native mobile has removed from the overall process. And then the last one is just notifications, right? So notifications on mobile, very quick, clean, kind of where to find them, and really underlying what they mean to you, especially if you've modified your own push notifications so that they're tailored to your own desire versus, if you're getting 50, 100 emails a day, certainly those can get lost in your inbox. Or if it happens to be a really popular thread, who wants 50 emails, based on one thread clogging up their inbox? So that also can be a compounding challenge in the current web forum environment. There's just kind of a couple examples. And then in contrast, the mobile forums, how do those differ? How are they, slightly different, but on multiple different points of how to communicate in that mobile environment? So with the screenshots here, you can see high-level topics, you can see threads, you can see what a push notification would certainly look like, and it's best received kind of where you are, where your attention is. It's in your phone, you're likely on the go, so you want to be able to engage quickly. So if you happen to be, killing time, maybe you're on a train or waiting for an airplane or in between meetings, quickly accessing your mobile app and seeing if anybody has replied or maybe there's new topics that you're interested in researching. But it's always with you, right? So leading back to the 22 out of 24 hours, your phone is within arm's reach. Pretty good odds that your content and the access to your content is going to be within arm's reach. Can't say enough about push notifications to give you ongoing updates, whether you're in a thread or there's just a new forum that you're really interested in staying up to date on. Perhaps you wanted to follow that forum if it was really important to you. Push notifications bring those alerts, really right to the palm of your hand. And then this last one here, we talked about it previously, the benefit of native mobile and not being required to log in repeatedly. That in and of itself, probably the biggest reason that's going to drive mobile forums as the next evolution of really member-to-member user-generated content and communication. Certainly in and around the concept of mobile forums, a key consideration and something to think about is the fact that you have additional features driving engagement surrounding it, okay? So if you have just a web-based listserv communication tool, it serves its purpose quite well, but it's fairly narrow in its intent and its purpose. A mobile forum will often be surrounded by other highly engaged features. So what we talk a lot about here at Clowder and just broadly on the benefits of mobile, it's not a single feature that gets your members coming back. It's a collection of really highly used features that work in concert with one another. So whether that's a news feed or a poll or a survey, certainly forums we've talked about, being able to access a member directory so that you might want to message someone. Maybe you've done it yourself. Think about your own use of social media. Have you ever found yourself looking at a post, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, seeing someone, maybe it's a name that you haven't seen in an awful long time, then you actually click on that name, and then maybe, depending on the context, you'll actually send that individual a direct message. Or you'll see a photo of someone you haven't seen in 20 years, and maybe you make a comment, looking great, haven't seen you so long, let's catch up at the next annual meeting. So now what you're starting to see is it's not just about the mobile forums, but it's about the wrapper surrounding that mobile forum that allows that mobile communication to happen so effortlessly. Other features, certainly you could drop in a resource library, so common documents that may be asked for, and then if you wanted to create non-dues revenue, the best way to create revenue is go where the attention is, and certainly that's in and around the mobile forum. Certainly in an app, we talked a little bit about the news feed, so that, like the example I just gave, can trigger ongoing discussions. So you could see something that catches your eye in a news feed that draws you to a forum, and frankly, it can work in the opposite direction too. You could see something in a forum that might then become a newsfeed story. One that I see on a growing level, just from broad statistics, is an active forum will create kind of a sub-forum, or it can spark members engaging in both direct chats as well as setting up a group chat. So if you see ongoing discussion about a like-minded topic, 5 or 6 people might decide they want to set up a group chat, right inside the same app. And then certainly you can have forums, since many of you do have, at least one or several meetings a year. Why not allow your forums to really drive some of that very topical discussion around the event. So it can both draw more people in, but also allow them to extend the discussion even beyond the event. Here's a couple of examples that I'm going to go through just so you have some context about what I'm talking about so that it makes a little bit more sense. In this instance, you've got some in-app forums that have done a great job for this particular customer, creating what they call a hook, right? So specific topics, sponsorship, technology, engagement, certainly started also when they first launched with an app feedback. And then you can also position your mobile forums in somewhat of a exclusivity environment so that you can leverage the concept of FOMO, fear of missing out. It definitely works, and it works when you have like-minded individuals having ongoing discussion in the same location. So if the only way to gain access to a topic of discussion is through the app, well then you're creating more value within your mobile forum environment. Certainly the topic of roles and permissions can be very effective when thinking about setting up your mobile forums. Really what this means is if I am a board member and my colleague is not, maybe I have access to certain topics and they do not, or vice versa. You can set it up by member type. As long as it's documented in your AMS or your database, that would be the source that your mobile provider would be looking to create these roles and permissions. But it really allows your mobile forums to create even more value because of that segmentation. And you can target audiences, which always creates more value to the receiving audience, just like targeting your push notifications. But using roles or permissions broadly as a strategy, it's really, really effective. A couple of examples that we are now seeing from specific customers of ours. This happens to be one that for many years had a web-based listserv community and recently sunsetted that community and pushed everything into their mobile app. They are doing that for many of the reasons I cited earlier. They're creating essentially a one-stop mobile shop for all of their members to consume content, to communicate with one another, to register for events, attend events, and then this is just kind of one more component as part of their larger strategy to add mobile forums and keep everything under one roof. And just another example of the broad forums on the left, and then when you drill down, you can certainly engage and like and comment and respond, as well as start your own forum. Throughout our website, we do have quite a bit of content related to mobile in general. So this is the address, just our website, and you'll see it at the top navigation. We've got a dedicated tab for our blog. We post on there every 7 to 10 days. Most of it is high level, talking about things like mobile readiness for 2020, how to tell the difference between native mobile versus a web app, certainly how to unlock the value of your AMS with mobile, and then things like we're talking about today, how the transition from web-based forums is shifting to native forums. But there's some really great content in here. We've got amazing writers that do the research and share this information. Most of it is broad. Some of it is specific to Clowdr. But I think you'll find some really good content in there if you're looking for additional resources. If you want more specific information about Clowdr, a couple things that you can do. You can reach out to Billy Barnes on my staff. You also have the ability, if you wanted to see our native mobile forums in action, I welcome you to download our demo app. It's just Clowder Member Engagement. It's available in both the App Store as well as Google Play. And sometimes, it's easier just to touch the buttons, play around, respond to a specific thread so that you can really immerse yourself in seeing how clean and friction-free the process is. And then we also power the ASAE app, not their event app, but just their year-round member app that's also available in the app stores as well. And then, of course, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to share any knowledge that I might add value with. If you decide to download the demo app, please do so. Feel free to message me in the app, or here's my email address. Or if you want to kind of go old-fashioned, you're more than welcome to call me as well. That's my mobile number. And our role here at Clowder is to provide guidance and assistance on, first, what are your overall goals? How is your mobile journey going to ultimately affect the long-term value of your organization? So we kind of start broad to really understand what are you trying to accomplish, and then we'll apply what we know very specifically about mobile to those goals. And in some cases, Clowder is the right solution for you. In other cases, we're not. That's okay. We're here to help first, and then see if we ultimately can't, work together. So I'm going to pause there. And, as Edward was pointing out in the introduction, if you do have any questions, you can certainly enter those in to the navigation bar under the questions section. So I welcome you to ask any questions right now. I'll be happy to field those, and I'll wait a minute to see if we capture any questions.
Thanks, Brad. We've got a few questions in, and before I get to those questions, just a reminder to everybody that as soon as we finish the Q&A, we're going to close the webinar. You'll get a feedback screen or a feedback form. Please take a moment to fill that out. That's what will get you the CAE credit. Also helps us to know, feedback on the topic itself. So first question I can actually answer for everybody is, will attendees have access to a copy of these slides? And the answer is yes. A couple hours after we close the webinar off, you'll get an automatic email with a recording of the webinar. And if you'd like the slides in addition to that, certainly you can reach out to us and we will get those to you. So first question I've got for you, Brad. This is a question I think probably relating to the L10 example that you showed, and I'm not sure if you know the answer to this or not. But the question is, in moving from a web forum to a mobile forum, were members surveyed regarding the decision, or did the association make the decision without member input?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they went ahead and made the decision based on just past historic use. And, most things in life, you're not going to please everybody. And what I encourage associations to think about is, surveying your membership it's counterintuitive, I realize, but in some cases, it's the wrong thing to do. Especially if you're trying to attract a younger audience and you don't have a younger audience. Why would you be surveying your membership to the population that you're trying to attract that you don't yet have today? So I think in L10's case, I'm correct in saying they just kind of looked at the historical view. I also think the platform that they were using, they were no longer investing in, which is not surprising. It's 20 years old web-based technology, and I think those couple things together really forced them to lead and present something in a format that is really more poised not just for today, but also for the future. So that's just kind of a broad answer to your specific question.
Next, couple questions coming up, and these are about integration. And just for everybody on the webinar, you can find some of this information out on Clowder's website. They've got an integrations page. But the first question is, do you integrate with HireLogic? And for those that don't know on the call, HireLogic is one of the more popular web-based forums available in the association market.
Yes. So the quick answer is yes. I always have to remind myself, HireLogic today is not the HireLogic of yesteryear, meaning they've added so much feature functionality to their broader platform and their email communication tools and some of the things that they've acquired over the years. So specifically to the web-based listserv, i.e. communities, we do have an integration with HireLogic. And in fact, the ASA app, if you are a member of ASA and you were to download the app, you will notice that it's not our mobile forums, it's Collaborate, which is the name of the HireLogic communities. So that's nice because they don't have to, turn off the web-based communities to pull it into the app. And in fact, when you respond from the app, it says response from mobile app. So it's actually indicated in the thread, but you're not required to log in each time either. So we do have an integration with HireLogic.
Next question is about integration with just a handful of membership systems. I'll just read them off. So the question is, do you integrate with Your Membership, MemberClicks, Growth Zone, AMS, or MemberSuite? I think at least 3 of those is a definite yes, correct?
We do, yep. So Growth Zone, we have not done that one, but the other ones we have.
Great.
And just a broad comment on integration. If the AMS or the database has an API, preferably a REST API, or broadly they believe in the API ecosystem, which is, non-technical terms, is just a bridge between third parties like Clowder and the database, then that's what we're looking for.
Next question, and this is probably kind of related to the question about L10 moving to a mobile forum. It says, how would we handle older members who may not be mobile savvy and would want to stick to using a computer to access our forums?
Listen, it can be delicate, right? Again, in my broader comment of, I think you have to first ask yourself, what are your overall goals? So if your goal is like it is for just about every association I talk to every day is attracting a younger audience, well then that's your North Star and you have to be focused on that. Will you potentially alienate an older member? It's possible, but you're focused on the longevity of the association. A pretty interesting stat that I shared in one of my recent webinars is millennials and Gen Y, the generation after millennials, because now millennials are 37, I think, at the top tier. They make up over half of the workforce. I think it's 53% right now. But in associations, Marketing General just came out with their annual membership survey, which is quite good if you haven't seen it. And that same geographic or demographic tier is only the 3rd most populated across associations. So you see associations in the next decade, if they're not focused on attracting that younger audience, they're going to be in real trouble. So you got over 50%, but yet it's only it's in 3rd place on current membership demographics. So that's definitely out of sync. And I would also say be careful about prejudging. So the largest growing segment of social media is women aged 45 to 60. So, you can't be so quick to say my 70-year-old membership is not going to jump on board. Time and time again, we are pleasantly surprised that if you offer a great interface and a good, clean user experience, they will come over.
Final question, and before I get to it, just a reminder, if you have any questions, just use the question and answer pane. We're happy to answer them. These are great questions. I think add a lot of value to the webinar. So last question that I've got is, what if our web forum is already mobile friendly? I think it's a question about the difference between a mobile friendly website and a native app.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. In most cases, my statement about, it's called responsive, meaning your website is responsive. So when you have your mobile device and you're looking at a web page, it looks good. To me, that's an absolute must. So if your site is not mobile responsive, it really needs to be. And just because you have a mobile responsive site, which also could house your web-based forums, you don't gain the access to all the benefits of notification and the real-time native interaction that happens just on the mobile app. So the need to continue to log in exists. Notifications, email versus real-time on the app, those are still all very relevant. Even if your web-based communities are mobile responsive.
Great. So Brad, that looks like the last question that we've got. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And again, as soon as this webinar is closed down, you'll get a feedback form. Please take a moment to fill it out. And with that, we'll go ahead and close it off. Thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much for joining us today.